Sweet, we're gonna get rolling here. We're gonna talk a little about assertiveness and confrontation. So just like, if you can remember way back to 1 hour ago, when we just had the wonderful presentation from Sharks and Abby, we're gonna take this a little step further. Yeah, come back. So, yeah. So we're gonna talk a little about what it's like to confront incidents, right? And so this is in particular an important part of your role as a career fellow is interrupting negative behavior, intervening, documenting, that kind of thing. So we're going to kind of talk through what that looks like. Feel free to open up your QG to page 15. We'll get to page 15 soon, but that's kind of where things will start for us. Yeah. Are you getting there? Good? Okay. So, what is it? So, confrontation, as you can see here, is, for our purposes, is a face-to-face conversation to address or to deal with something that maybe is a problem, a difficult situation, right? And sometimes you're going to interact in situations that are a bit unpleasant or just may need to be resolved. And your role as a CF, that's what you do, not all of it, but that's part of it. Yeah.
So, what confrontation is not. We're not police, we're not asserting dominance, you're not looking for violations or situations to confront. If you happen upon it, you need to report it, but you are not hiding in the bushes, trying to catch people locking up death row. You shouldn't be.
So here's some basic tips in terms of initially confronting. So we want to make sure that we're assertive, right? The title of our presentation is Assertiveness and Confrontation, right? So your role is to enforce policy and to confront when incidents where there is a potential violation of policy. So we see, starting with verbal, yes, being assertive, having confidence, or at least faking it in that moment to show confidence. If you fake it enough, soon you will become actually confident, and you will develop that. Returners in the room, do you know what I'm talking about? Like your first time confronting, you maybe were nervous or just you were afraid, but then as you go along, you develop more confidence, right? Is that
yes.
Yeah, fair? Okay, good. We don't want to be aggressive, right? We certainly don't want to be ready or likely to attack. Like as Manuel said, we're not in that position where we're looking for something, where we're just ready to pounce on something that may or may not be a violation. That's not it, and that's not conducive to people feeling like they're in a community and cared about, right? And keep it simple. The best thing that you can remember is that you were there to document what you see. Anything that happens after that moment, after that incident, has nothing to do with your work. I mean, you don't have any involvement in the process, so you're there to document the situation. And soon we'll go through what it's like to document actually in our conduct system. But you're there to communicate through writing in an incident report what you see, what you hear, that kind of thing, right? So it's very easy to just make that claim. Like if residents are grilling you about what's going to happen, I don't know. I'm here to document what I am experiencing. That's it. So it makes it simple for you. And it really helps to use I need statements or I statements. So one thing that I always found successful in making choices in a room is to say something that almost, it doesn't sound like a question, it sounds nice, but it's sort of a demand. I need you to turn the lights on. I need you to turn the music off. I need you all to sit down. Right? And you can say those things that are definitely a direction that you're giving, but you can say it in a way that's not aggressive, it's assertive. And you'll find that even in sometimes the most seemingly disruptive incident, you can really calm down and make really easy, really simple, just by saying 3 or 4 things to the residents. Again, I need to see everyone's ID, I need you to open the fridge, I need you to open the door all the way. How many times returners, when you knock and residents open, do they open it all the way. What do they typically do? Open just a little bit. Can I help you? I need you to open her all the way, right? Because you need to see as much as you possibly can all the way into the room. You can see how many people perhaps are in the room. And again, if the light is off, turn that light on. That will help in your facilitation of that conversation. If there's any distraction in music, say anything, music, right? So don't be afraid to give directives, be direct, and you'll be surprised how quickly things move forward. Especially with nonverbal, again, making eye contact, appropriate eye contact. You're not there to just like stare someone down and try to, that's not your thing. You're there to communicate with everyone in needs, right? And sometimes it's just one person at the door, but it's good for you to make eye contact if possible with everyone in the room. And then obviously you're scanning, so scan the room. Are there any things that you maybe need to be aware of? You won't know if you're not looking around, if you're not kind of scanning the room, floor to ceiling, wall to wall kind of thing. Under a bed, under a futon. Has anyone ever seen anyone get under a bed or hide under a futon or anything like that?
Right up the closet.
Right? So those are good hints, helpful hints for you. And your body positioning as well. Stand in the doorway. Oftentimes, at least I think in my experience and perhaps in your attorney's experience, you can successfully complete an incident from the doorway. You don't step into the room. In fact, we would probably say, don't go in the room at all. Stay at the threshold, stay outside of the room. And with your words, with your direction that you use, you can pretty much resolve any incident. If there's any issues, certainly have a backup CF with you, or if there's any question, don't be afraid to call Campus Safety or the AC on call. One thing I did mention here, if there are two of you, one of you maybe take the primary role and you're kind of the primary speaker, the communicator, and if you're the secondary CF, you're the one that's documenting, you're taking notes, you're really on the stand, because you don't have to worry about talking really, like you're the one that really can look around and take notes. It's really, really great to have someone to write on and write with, because when you go back to document that incident, some things really just erase from memory very quickly, and if you don't have those notes, which often are really, really important notes to include in the report, it can be often difficult for the hearing officer to effectively facilitate that kind of stuff. And then a really great helpful tip, shoes. Wear closed-toed shoes. Why would you want to do that? Returners? Henry?
Slam the door on you, you're not going to break your toes.
Yeah, it's just kind of a helpful little thing. It would be awful if you were there and they were like, no thanks, I don't want to talk to you, and just shut the door and your toe was in the door. That would be really painful, right? So certainly helpful if you have the opportunity to go put different shoes on, do that.
And just a quick clarification about when Danny said, don't go in the room at all. Our main concern is, your safety. So if you have two of you, one of you can step into the room while the other one is, kind of closer by the door. We just don't want you to, get in the room, have the door closed, and then maybe you're not able to get out, maybe you're in an unsafe situation that also just closes you off, where residents can say something happened that didn't happen. So always just make sure you're keeping the door open. Tyra.
So what if you're inviting, if you knock on the door and they come in, should you say, oh, I'm fine by the door, or should you actually enter?
I think if you can keep the door open, you can step in as long as you can keep the door open.
What if someone tries to leave? Do you block them still at the doorway, or do you?
No, don't put yourself in danger. If somebody is coming at you and gonna tackle you, get out of the way. But a lot of times when you do stand in that doorway, if you take a firm stance where you're you're not like this or whatever, you're firmly planted, that's gonna make it a lot harder for them to try to leave. It doesn't mean that that will never happen, but it's gonna make it a lot harder for them. But yes, never put yourself in a position where you might get hurt.
To follow up on that, what if the people who don't live there want to leave? Can they or not?
We always just ask everyone who's involved in the scenario that they need to stay in the scenario until the end.
Yeah, so I know like we're not allowed to open the door for them. Does that go with the light switch too? Like,
I think it's always better to ask them to do it.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So if it's like both alcohol and noise violation thing, and like you are, let's say, a low noise with another CF, and you like interrogate them and do all that stuff, and like you want to go, are you allowed to like go further and say like, I want to search the room, or that's the job of the campus safety?
That would be campus safety. So as soon as you, generally in alcohol situations, especially if you're like not sure if they're 21, but even if they are 21, like it's always a good idea to be calling campus safety. And then they can take the lead on the situation from there.
So I wanted to ask, with rooms, like first year ones, you'd probably be able to survey everything in the room, but what about upper class dorm buildings like IC or Southwest that had like multiple rooms within a main room? How would you, if you feel there's a alcohol violation, how would you go about executing that?
Should any returners have any advice, Megan?
Last year, the issue becomes, especially with apartments and suites, is that people can be like hiding in bedrooms. And so last year, Lindsay was just like, call campus safety because you don't want to be going inside the room. The rooms are bigger, but more people in them. So sometimes like there'll be 15, 20 people in a room. And so you don't want to be entering that space. And so it's just better to have campus safety go in and check all that everybody's out of the rooms and stuff.
Addie.
The other thing is, we learned this last year in Behind Closed Doors, it was like counting shoes. Like if you see 3 people sitting in the living room and then you see like 10 pairs of shoes sitting by the door, like something's not quite adding up. Unless they're just really messy and they just leave all their shoes, but you know, it's like, nah.
So is that a case where you still say call campus safety, or would you ask to know who all is in the apartment or suite?
I think it's very situational. I think you can stand there with the door open and you're gonna say like, I'm gonna call campus safety, and then it's gonna take a while for campus safety to get there probably, unless they're like in that building, and then during that time you could definitely have that conversation. I see 10 pairs of shoes but only 3 people, like where are the rest of the people? Okay, we're gonna move on. So before you're about to confront, it's always a good idea to just like take a deep breath, quickly run through, some of these questions in your head. Why are you here? Most of the time, I hope you're gonna know why you're here and about to confront a scenario. But just stop and think about like what you can see and hear and smell, because we want you to tell the residents why you are there. So, you knock, hey, I heard people saying, let's take shots, and I heard like glass clinking, because that is much more clear to the resident and helps you state your point than just like, hey, what's going on in here? So think through like those things. What do you hear, see, smell? What do you think is happening? That doesn't necessarily mean that that is always what's happening, but a lot of times like your gut and your intuition is probably going to be right, especially if you're experienced at confronting. What's your end goal? So like what steps do you need to take to resolve the issue, but also remembering that you still need to maintain rapport and like positive relationships with these people because they are a part of your community. Do you need or want backup? Even if you are in a building where you don't have a duty partner, you never have to confront a situation alone if you are feeling uncomfortable or a little uneasy about it. You can call another CF, you can call campus safety, you can call the Res Life Pro Staff on call. Any of those people will be happy to help you. So think through that. And then do you have what you need to document the situation? Sometimes you're confronting incidents when you're not on duty, so you don't always have your fun little duty pack with your notebook and your pen. So do you at least have your phone that you can take notes, or do you need to call someone to help you and bring those supplies?
So now we'll kind of go through then page 15 if you'd like to follow along. The ABCs of confrontation, just like Manuel had said, with the announce, like honestly tell them why you're there. Or that's the beginning story. Announcing is saying, knocking CF on call, or CF, this is Maya. I need you to open the door, right? Clearly stating who is there, and oftentimes you will hear, come in. And I think it's helpful for me, at least, I would say, like, to just knock again, pretend I didn't even hear them say come in, just like keep knocking and announcing myself. Because at some point, hopefully they'll open the door. I'll say, I need you to open the door, or I won't open, please open the door, something like that. It gets them, actually up and moving. And be vigilant about like what you're hearing and experiencing as you knock and announce. There may be times when you hear shuffling, you hear some clinking, you hear some, shh, put that away, get in the closet, kind of thing. You might hear that. And then when you get to the B, the statement of because, I'm here because, yes, I heard noise from 6 doors down, or as I walked in the hallway, I heard somebody say, shut, shut, shut. And then say, actually, and then after I had knocked, I heard bottles clinking, I heard somebody whisper, XYZ, reiterate to the best of your ability what you heard. It's like the best option, I think, to be honest with what you're experiencing. Tell them exactly what you heard. That's often really difficult to deny, or it's like not really visible in the moment. But those are important things to include in your report as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're good. So, Danny talked a lot about that. Because, we did that one.
Yeah.
All right, this is a big one. Okay, C. Converse and collect. So, you're gonna have a respectful conversation. It's not your job to be demeaning or condescending. And this is like another way that you're building community in your hall and ensuring safety. So respectful conversation, let them explain what's going on to you, because sometimes it's not what you might think it is or what it sounded like. You can ask as many questions as you need to kind of understand what's happening. C is also for collect, so collect their IDs. If they're Gustavus students, we want their Gustavus IDs with their ID number. If they're non-Gusties, we'll ask for their government ID. Like we talked about, if you're in pairs, the second CF can be the note taker, because that just makes it flow a little bit easier. If someone says they don't have an ID, ask their name and ID number, and you can use THD Mobile to verify that information. And if they're not a Gustavus student, we'll still need to document their involvement, and you'll need to contact campus safety, because a lot of times we will not let the non-Gustie stay on campus and continue to cause trouble. If alcohol is present, we have to verify that they are 21, so we need to make sure to check their age, either on their driver's license or THD Mobile. It's probably going to be a little bit more of a reliable resource for that, and then you don't have to necessarily be doing math in your head, because it'll say under 21 or not, or it should.
Can I ask something about that? So when we are collecting IDs, are we just looking at it and then giving it back to them, or are we actually like?
You're writing down the ID numbers and their name.
So then the D, one of the Ds is to determine, what to do next. What are your next steps? So, as you can see, so for incidents that involve alcohol, you kind of proceed as follows. So if the students are 21 and alcohol is present, but they're not displaying signs of intoxication, then the alcohol can remain in the room. And of course, if they're under 21 and alcohol is present, call campus safety. That's across the board. So then after campus safety has arrived, The alcohol must be poured out if the alcohol is consumed in a public area, right? If it's possessed or consumed by persons who are not 21, of course, again, that is an issue. If none of the residents of the room are present, so sometimes you may encounter that, where something is happening in a room and most people who live there are not there. Obviously, there is an issue where alcohol needs to be disposed of. And then, of course, if there's not at least one resident of the room that is present and 21, so if neither of those things are true, then of course it needs to be disposed of. I think a good thing to remember the bottom three bullets here then, so in large part, if the residents are not 21 and there's alcohol present, campus safety needs to be called and the alcohol will be disposed of. If any resident is under 21 and is present, campus safety. And then of course if there's any situation involving drugs, or what you think may be drugs or a substance that is not legal, call campus safety.
And also with this, like, we don't ever want you touching the alcohol bottles or cans or anything. Sometimes residents will try to be like, here, like, smell this, or like, look at this, and they'll try to put it in your face and make, like you're gonna want to, oh, they're handing me something. We don't ever want you touching alcohol containers or anything unless campus safety has come and has asked you to help dispose.
So like when pouring it out, like you said, if it's after the fact and campus safety is like, can you pour this out, then we would do that. But is there any case like where we would want the students, like we would go with the student to pour it out and watch them pour it out?
I think that's always better.
So you escort them basically using your directed language to say, I need you to grab those and come with me.
Yeah. Which I think happens more commonly, but if every once in a while, campus safety might say, hey, we have 2 cases of beer. Can you help pour this?
Carries this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So about going to a situation where like the residents of that specific room are not in the room. So like if you have like an alcohol violation case and like let's say it's in room 2 and both residents are not in the room, but there are like other people holding like a party or like that alcohol situation in there, would they be held responsible for anything, or you would just like document whatever was going on there, like this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, document everything that you see, and that will come out in the end through the conduct process. That will happen afterwards. But like you're there, if there's alcohol present and the people are not 21, it's almost regardless of who the room it is, you're still confronting that incident. You're still, facilitating the wrap-up of that incident. You're directing people to stay present, stay in the room. Again, like Mary said, if they're like, no, please I'm out, we don't stop them, but we try our best to identify them, right? And we'll likely find that further information in the process.
Yeah, and with that, it's not your job to be deciding, like, you're getting a violation for XYZ. You are just there to document the situation. We will worry about what the specific, conduct violation charges are after the fact. So if the room owners are not in the room, that's what you write in the report, and then we decide what to do with that. But as Shugs and Abby talked about in their policy session, you are responsible for your room. So anything that happens in your room is your responsibility, regardless of.
You guys touched on it, I just want to emphasize, the more you separate yourself from doing actions during the incident, the better it will be. So if you ask people, it might just sound a little overbearing sometimes, but asking them to open the door and turn on the light switch and things like that, it is 10 times easier to document and keep yourself removed from any backlash from the student. Because if you're the one that opens the door, they might say, well, CF Nate came in, busted in through my door and asked where the alcohol I have in my room is. And so it's really for your safety that we have those step-by-step processes.
This is just a little flow chart. It's in your QG. It's also on Moodle, but it's just kind of what to do in an alcohol situation. So we just wanted to draw attention to that. You can look through it and talk with your agency about it later if you have questions.
So the second part, the second D of the D is direct. So again, with the language, it's important to be as polite, as possible as you can. A great mix of assertiveness and being polite usually is best. Just really tell them what you need from them. That's, I think, one of the most important things. I need all the alcohol to be brought to the middle of the room. Like, that's a really great direction so that you can kind of see what is there. So you can kind of compare it to what your intuition is telling you from when you knocked on the door and you heard multiple bottles clinking, multiple things happening, what you think anyway, and you say, I need all the alcohol in the room just to be brought right to the room right here. And there's like one little bottle that they produced. It's like, are you sure that's it? It's like, is there any more? Maybe take another look around. Maybe make another little pass around your room. Make sure you've got everything because you may need to call campus safety and they may do more of a thorough check. So it's best to just have all the alcohol brought to the middle of the room. And again, using, if you're in a hall that has sinks in the room, again, the I need statements. I need you to do this. I need you to dispose of the alcohol down the sink, that kind of thing. If you're not, you're likely to just go to a bathroom, escort the residents to the bathroom to dump it out. And it's really important. Like sometimes in maybe larger incidents, if I'm the one that answered the door and maybe I'm 2 fists in it, and I got 2 beers, and Henry's the CF and he says he needs to see my ID. I'm like, oh, okay, just let's go. Don't take that. You're like, no, that's right. Just go ahead and set that down on the floor real quick and give them the key, right? Sometimes it's, we're nice people. We're like, oh, sure. Next thing you know, you have, you're on 3 different Snapchat accounts and Instagram holding a beer in the student's room 5 seconds later, right? Don't do that. Don't put yourself in situations that way. And then, of course, if residents are not complying with your directions, just call campus safety. You're not there to spend 2 hours trying to deal with people who are not listening to you and not following what you're asking. Just say, like, if this is the second time I've asked, I won't ask a third time, I'll just call campus safety. I just need you to follow through with what I'm asking.
So we can deal with an alcohol incident on our own. We don't need to call campus safety, or like if they're complying, I think
sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. No.
Most of the time in a first-year hall, the residents are going to be under 21. If they are under 21, you need to call campus safety every time, so that we can get the breathalyzer, and that helps the area coordinators when we do our conduct meetings to know what levels they're at.
So if it's a situation where CFMD needs to go into a room, or not going to, but open the room up, and one of the individuals that's in the room is supposed to see it, what is the process?
Follow through as you normally would for residents as well. Document everything that you see. Follow through normally, and the rest will come out through the process.
Will campus safety search the room if they think there's alcohol?
I don't know if there's a cut and dried. It maybe is every case is different. They may have their own reasoning or call for what they do each time. So I don't know if there's a set. We do this every time kind of thing. Probably is really situational.
I don't think they do like as in-depth of a search, like if they're looking for drugs or marijuana, but a lot of times they'll ask to see in the fridge, maybe in the closet, things like that.
One thing to note is, though you may feel bad for what's happening, like it may be your peers, your friends that you're confronting. You're their friend before, and you be their friend now, but right now in that moment, you're the person that's enforcing that policy. And so I always like to say, like, don't apologize. Don't say, I'm sorry, I have to do my job. Because that kind of demeans the whole purpose. And you shouldn't be sorry. You should feel proud that you're fulfilling a function of your job. And, this one small moment will pass, and you will move on with other really great community building things and other really positive things. At that moment, I always think it's best to say, don't apologize. Like, you're here to just facilitate this function of your job. And if anyone runs from the scene like this, I just think you should go.
E stands for explain and exit, so kind of concluding the scenario. So thank them for their cooperation if they were cooperative, like if they were jerks to you, don't say thank you, because that's not great. You can explain what's going to happen next. So what'll happen next, you'll write a report documenting the situation, and then the area coordinator of that building or someone from the Res Life office will get in touch with them the following business day, a couple business days, week, soon. You can ask if they have any questions. You might not know the answer, but you can say, I don't know. I can check in on that and get back to you. Encourage them to check their email, because that's how their area coordinator will contact them about setting up their conduct meeting. Being polite when you exit, like, you know, have a good rest of your night, have a good evening. And then a lot of times incidents happen on rounds, so even if this took an hour, you still need to be finishing the round that you started. So make sure you're keeping your notes.
If you are in one of the buildings that's not yours, that you use and you're not on duty and you walk by, would that you feel is meeting the violation, would you contact the building CF that's on duty, or would you deal with that as your
I would deal. I would confront these. Not really.
Yeah, I would, call the CF on duty if it's duty hours or campus safety, and I think we would say, like, we want you to, like, stay there if you can in that situation to explain, like, what's going on, or, like, assist that CF or campus safety. But we, like, other residents in other buildings might not know that you're a CF, or, like, might not be familiar with you, and generally residents in your, in their own buildings know they're the CFs in those buildings, so that just, they're more comfortable, there's usually a little bit more of a rapport, but don't just, like, walk by and not say anything. Definitely, like, call campus safety or Res Life on call or another CF from that building.
But if you're in your own building but not on duty, and you walk by, or your own duty area, you're not on duty and you walk by and you see something, then you should still confront. Just because you're not on duty doesn't mean it's like, well, I get a pass, don't have to confront this. You are still the one confronting it.
Or if it is within duty hours but you're not on duty, you don't just call the CFs on duty and say, hey, this is happening, come deal with it, and walk away. Like, you can call them for help and they can come assist you, but you're the one who found that situation, so you also need to be the one confronting that situation. I saw Jacob.
You mentioned finishing the duty rounds with the 90 minutes, like that being a shorter, like downtime between rounds. You might have incidents that will take that entire time. In which case, if we like start our 9:30, run into like an incident like on the second floor, and it turns out to be 11 when we get done talking with campus safety, trading notes, that kind of thing, would you like us to just do like a double check through the building, one check through the building, and maybe just mark on the duty log, incident took entire time doing just my 11 o'clock round incident that we have for our 9:30 round? Because with that such short downtime, there are incidents that will, I know personally I've taken like an hour and a half, 2 hours to go through. And at that point, do we want us to do a double round, or just start the next round and say, mark what we have?
I wouldn't say do it like double round twice in a row. If you are in that situation and it's a situation where you could maybe like call another CF, like could you do a quick round of the building, like that would be helpful. But like if it's just you and you're not done till 11 o'clock, like I don't think we need you to like go twice in a row just for the sake of doing 2 rounds. And you can always call the Res Life person on call, or like send a text to your AC and just like, hey, this happened, how do you want me to proceed? Sam?
Right, I had an incident last year that lasted close to 4 hours-ish, and I remember there were 2 campus safety officers and there was some St. Peter police, but because there were so many eyes on the situation and because at the time there wasn't a lot happening, a camp safety officer asked me if I had to go on another round, and so I went on the round while they were still taking notes and watching.
Right.
So that was helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's it'll be very situational.
What if you encounter an incident, let's say at the center or even down in the houses?
Does any returner want to?
What was the question?
If they encounter it out in the campus center down at one of the houses, so the houses are still part of residential life, so
Well, the ILS houses.
right, the ILS, yeah, those ones are. So it's tough with the houses, but in the campus center, if we're on campus and they're drinking out in the open, then it's still our job to call campus safety. Wait till campus safety gets there and then they'll take over because they probably won't need you to do anything because obviously from there they'll take it, you don't have to do notes and all that. But at the ILS houses,
Still call campus safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's outside of your area or outside of res halls, still call campus safety, but we're not expecting you to personally confront that incident if you are not in your own hall and it's a general campus area. So there still needs to be some follow-up, but you don't have to.
It's just a 90
Yeah.
Well, so the ILS residents are still they report to me. So they can still get policy violations and I meet with those people. So if you see something happening down there, please call campus safety.
And you still document it the same way as one of the on-campus?
Yep, they are an on-campus residence. So it would be the same as if you saw something in Aurelius.
So then after your incident, maybe you finish your round, you're gonna have to write a report about it, which we are talking about next, so you'll learn all about that. Reports need to be submitted within an hour following the incident. If you have 2 or 3 incidents in a row, obviously there's a grace period there, but you shouldn't be waiting till the next day or 2 days after the incident to be writing your report because you're not going to remember all the details of what happened. So immediately following the incident, you should go back to your room, back to the CF office, write your report, and submit that. And then if you need to process the incident, obviously confidentiality is important, so only processing with if there are any other CFs involved, or your area coordinator, you can share all of that information with your area coordinator because we're the ones who get the report, so we're going to know what happened anyway. So something we say a lot is share up, not out, so you can share that with me if I'm your area coordinator, but maybe not Just if she wasn't there.
And so finally, the F, follow-up. So it's really important to follow up with residents that you've documented to help maintain the relationship that you maybe have with them or the community. Ask if they have questions about, that particular incident or what they've been thinking about it since or what they've been thinking about it at all. Let them know, obviously, that you're just you're doing your job. You care for them. It doesn't change the way that you think or feel about that person. That's important as well. And then also know that it's good to maybe give some time and space to them. So they may need more time to digest and kind of think about what happened. For lots of folks, it's maybe the first time that they've encountered something like that. And, people are sometimes really scared, really anxious, or sad, or angry. Or you don't really know exactly what may come up after the incident happens. And then it's important to know that you're likely going to run into these people. We're a smaller campus, right? We're going to see people in a class, in the gym, in the cab. And to know the right sort of environment to engage with people is really important. So if they're in the caf and they're at a table with 7 different people, Don't be like, hey Henry, like, how's it going since I documented you last night? Right? That's not respectful to him, and it's just really not okay. Like, maybe it's specifically visiting him in his room a day or two later. If he's walking to class and you happen to see that he's by himself, catch up. And if you can have your private moments sort of there. If other friends happen to kind of gather around and kind of stop the conversation and finish it. That's important, just to kind of remember the setting. Perhaps it's an email or a text, like, hey, can you just follow up or just want to make sure you're okay? Do you have any questions? How have you been? That kind of thing. That's important.
Okay. Now that you know the ABCs, we're just going to talk through some types of resident responses you may encounter. This is not all-encompassing, but I think these are some pretty common things. So being cooperative, being very quiet, getting angry or yelling, questioning, crying or getting emotional, and trying to bargain. So we're going to talk through those.
So people maybe who want to be cooperative, they'll just do as you ask. They'll just follow through. They'll do everything sort of as they need to. Don't ever tell folks what will happen because you don't know. Right? Like, again, your job is there to document that moment. And use THD Mobile, THD Mobile as a quick reference. In there you'll see the information, you'll see photos of them. It's sort of the bottom one within Mobile. You can click on a photo, it shows you a big giant photo of them. But there'll also be alerts in there, so they'll come out in red, and I'm checking on some things right now. But it will tell you if the person is under 21 or under 18. It'll show in red ink that alert. So it'll be very easy for you to see in mobile.
Then there's a very quiet one. So they're passive, they kind of go with the flow, they try to maybe like blend into the background. They probably won't say a lot unless they're directly asked a question. Don't forget about them. They could be quiet because they're being sneaky and trying to get away with more stuff that you haven't noticed. Or they could just like really be scared and not know what's going on. And we want to still support students if they are in that situation too.
You may encounter people who are really upset, or they get really angry when they start yelling. Maybe their goal is to belittle you, or maybe they're embarrassed, and so that's bringing about their emotion. You never really know what's bringing their emotion out. But don't worry, they won't be successful in throwing you off your trail, right? You're there to use your directive words and to resolve the incident. But it may be at times that the words they use or actions they say may be outrageous, they may be really difficult for you. But it's really important, I think, to stay calm, stay collected, and take word-for-word notes, and include that in your report, even if it's cuss words. We want to know what people are saying so they can come out later in their meetings.
Yeah, so that's really important, especially trying to get verbatim what they say, because when they have their conduct meetings and stuff, they can basically get in more trouble for saying that later on. So because they take into consideration how compliant they are, so that's really important. Even they might not do it their words, obviously, but it is really important to pay attention and like that.
Is that something that you can say, or like a strategy saying like if you are more cooperative, it's going to be better for you in the long run?
I wouldn't make a statement like that, because then they'll just believe that
they're going to get off.
It gives them an opportunity to believe that they may not get a sanction at all, or that, right? So like, it probably isn't the best case to say something like that. You may remind folks like this will all go quicker. This may be more pleasant for everyone if you just follow through with our directions.
You might have residents who start questioning you, and this is not necessarily like questioning to like try to understand. That might happen too, but this is more like trying to just get you to contradict yourself, throw you off their game. Maybe they are going to be a lawyer and want to, throw things back in your face. So just continue to think back on what the policy is and why you're there, and reiterate those things.
You may encounter people who are really emotional or crying, really upset. Have you ever seen anyone be upset?
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, maybe they're just really sad. Maybe they've never been in a situation like this before and they're scared. Maybe they think that their parents are going to make them drop out and move home because they've got, they think they've been in trouble, And again, just be firm, be gentle. Remind them that they'll meet with the area coordinator, share their side of the story, and that's why you're there, right? To support them, to facilitate that incident, to remind them that you'll have an opportunity to talk about this later with the area coordinator, and that again is why follow-up later on is really important for you to come back to help support that student.
The last one, bargaining. So they want to tell you why they shouldn't be getting in trouble, what other solutions you can have. So if you just let us off this one time, we'll never be loud again. Or I don't know, maybe we'll bake you cookies or something. A lot of times these students might have experience with the conduct system, so they know it a little bit, and they don't want as they get more violations, their sanctions get more severe, so that's when we start notifying parents and coaches in certain types of situations, and they really don't want their parents and coaches to find out, so they'll try to get out of it however they can. And again, repeating and reiterating what you've already said, and not like being like, yeah, okay, I'll let you off if you make me cookies.
Actors, will you please come forward? So we have 6 wonderful actors who are going to role play a couple different scenarios for us. And after each scenario, we will come back to the audience to kind of talk about, we'll talk slowly through the process, through the ABCs, okay?
Oh yeah. What do you mean?
We don't have any props.
No, we got props.
Oh, are you winning?
Oh, totally. We're so winning.
Yeah, you gotta
We
win!
gave it so hard.
Woo!
Oh, to kill that Ender Dragon. Booze is helping.
Keep going!
Yeah, totally. Hey,
Yeah!
hey, if we get this tower, let's take another shot. Yeah.
What? Stick on duty. We need you guys to open the door.
It's nothing.
Oh, we got to finish the game. We gotta kill him.
Stick on duty. You guys don't open the door. We're gonna have to talk campus safety.
I gotta kill a dragon. Gotta kill the dragon.
What?
Hi. I need you to open the door all the way, please.
The dragon's
We're
almost
not doing anything.
Yep. But you guys were being really loud. Hey, Jonathan, I need you to put the game down, please.
Listen, we're really sorry for being loud. They're just playing their video games. We'll put it away. Just don't even worry about it.
Yeah, I understand that, but you guys are being really loud. I can also see that you guys were drinking. It smells like alcohol in here. If there's any bottles, I need you guys to bring those to the center of the room.
It wasn't me. I wasn't drinking at all.
I'm sorry, but that's actually I'm not sorry. I need you guys to bring all the bottles to the center of the room, please.
Guys, get your stuff.
You really can't do this.
I really had nothing to do with this. I really didn't.
I understand that. And that's you guys are going to have a meeting with your area coordinators to talk about this. It is my job to enforce policy.
Okay, but Lindsay already hates me, so
I need you to calm down a little bit. Do deep breaths.
seriously, I can't afford to have another one of these on my record.
And that's why you get a chance to talk about all this with your area, all right? This is just my job to enforce policy. Okay?
Do you understand what this could do for my future? You're ruining my life. Excuse me.
Could you, I actually need you all to bring me your student ID so that I can document your names.
Jonathan and David, you guys come up and behind the table, please.
I'm also going to need your IDs.
You know who I am. You know, if my mom finds out about this, she's gonna make me drop out and transfer to the U of M. And you know what happens if I leave? Miss Davidson's dropout rate goes up. I don't have any friends anymore. You're gonna leave me?
Okay, so campus safety is on their way here. They're gonna take over the situation once they get here, and then just, you guys will have an email from your area coordinator to set up a meeting time with them, all right? And then campus safety would show up and they would take over.
Everyone, page 15. Page 15. Hang on, actors right here. If you will, please. We'll just kind of go through them one more second. So, talk me through the A, B, C, D, E, F. What did our confronting CFs, what did they say for A? What was A? He did, yes, he did. How about B? The because, what was said? Right. Yeah, he described it. He described what he was seeing and hearing, yes. So C. About conversing. Did he converse? Yeah. Yeah, and he's going to go all the way. Yeah, through the alcohol. Yep, Abby as a secondary CF, she was kind of looking around, right? She was really observing when they maybe weren't necessarily responding too well. She came to the forefront and was like, I need everyone to bring me their IDs. Reiterated that, and it was in the collection process. They talked about calling campus safety, yes. And E, explain what was said there. Yes, yeah, inform them of what will happen, right? And then the follow-up, the F will happen later, right? Yes? Yeah. Okay, so we have one more scene. Actors, are you ready? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. It would be great.
Hey, Abby.
Hey, are you guys playing hack sack in the hall?
No.
No?
Not even a little bit. We're not.
Pretty sure I see a hacky sack and you guys
I'm not sure that's a hacky sack.
in the hallway. So actually our policy is that we're not supposed to be playing sports in the hall.
Oh, but why?
Because essentially, so there's sprinklers running down this whole hall. Please stop throwing.
There's no hacky sack here.
Can you just stay
Can I just go get my hacky sack?
Please stay here. Can you guys just cooperate for a second? I need to tell you the policy and you can just document this for a second.
Why?
So there's sprinklers in the hallway and if you hit them with
I wasn't even
We
close to the
weren't gonna hit
sprinkler.
this. They're pretty high up there.
It's
Professionals. We're really bad at it.
I hit something else, not the sprinkler.
Listen, my point is, you're not supposed to be doing that in the wall, and
Why are we supposed to?
I just told you, because there's sprinklers. Now you use your listening ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So we're actually gonna have to document this. We need your ID. It is because you're not
I
cooperating.
don't have my ID with me.
Number one.
You're not cooperating.
I have my
I also don't have my ID.
Why do you have my ID?
If you would,
Can I get your
that would be
name?
really great if this moving.
Jonathan?
You guys have been doing this repeatedly all week, and so I don't wanna have to ask you again. We did talk about it at our meeting.
The other ID.
So we know that you do know.
I missed the floor meeting. I'm sorry.
Jonathan, because you missed the floor meeting, we had a personal one-on-one in your room about it,
I
like
don't
3
remember.
weeks ago. Yeah, see, if this wasn't a recurring situation, we could tell you to stop, and then you could hopefully comply and cut it out, and then it'd be a one and done, but because you're not cooperating, we're gonna have to unfortunately send this information to our area coordinator.
What's gonna happen?
You might be contacted by your area coordinator, sometime in the next couple of days.
Who's my area coordinator?
your area coordinator?
How many days?
Pittman, so it would be Mandy Ray.
Yes.
So like, what's gonna happen then?
So then,
Is it a fine or a conduct meeting?
we can't actually
And I
tell
get
you
my
right now
hand
because we don't
Yeah.
do anything other than document the
Could
situation.
we
That's why
play
Mandy
sports
Ray
if
will
it's
talk
not
to you.
quiet hours?
How about you can play sports outside where
Yeah.
it's
But
not
it's dark
allowed?
outside.
Maybe not tonight.
But what about the big game?
What if it's the dead of winter? Can we go to
It's
lunch?
cold outside.
Yep. You can go to lunch.
What-
Oh, okay, we'll go to lunch.
Okay, great, all right. So, for the audience, talk to me about the A, B, C, D, E.
Where'd it go?
Just go ahead, talk us through what you saw from our actors.
They're not, so they're not necessarily not, they're out.
They were out in the open, yeah, so not always will there be a knock and announce. So sometimes you'll just come upon something and it's still important to just announce and describe who you are. What else? How about B?
We saw the hacky sack, and we saw that it was being kicked around.
Yeah.
So that's all.
It did. C. So this scene was maybe a little more difficult because it's not necessarily your standard incident where people are in a room and it's a little easier to just communicate with people, like if they're out in the open. And in particular, most of the actors were really questioning and sort of not listening, really. How about the CF, the confronting CF? So they do a good job of communicating through some of that distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
it's
explain like the policy, like why they couldn't play.
right. It's really important to just stay on your game and keep explaining the process and letting them know. Sorry.
You don't need to apologize.
No.
So distracting.
But sometimes that will, so returners, does that kind of thing happen where people really are very curious about the process? Yeah, and that's okay, right? It's okay to a certain point because you're not going to spend an hour standing there answering the same question 100 times, right? And actually, Maddie, you had said when they asked, you said, I just told you.
Right.
I just said that, right? And then you didn't ask that same question again. So that's okay to show some of that assertiveness in that moment, right? And you explained what some of the repercussions could be if they continued. You know, these sprinkler systems, they pump out like hundreds of gallons of water a minute. It's devastating. And the water that's in those pipes has been sitting there for perhaps years. It's nasty, disgusting, smelly water. It will ruin like everything. So it's like a big deal. And also, people can get hurt. If you're throwing the hacky sack around, someone can get hit and hurt with it. Or somebody playing can get hit. So then the D, the directing. So what did Holly do? Holly was kind of the secondary CF maybe, if you will?
Yeah.
So what did she do?
She made sure that everybody stayed in that area.
She did. So she was kind of crowd control. So when Maddie was really taking the verbal lead, you know, kind of confronting the incident, Holly was sort of corralling, or at least, you know, speaking in a way that helped corral people and direct them to get, you know, to move forward with the incident. So you collected the IDs, right? So you had said that while Maddie is sort of maintaining, you know, their attention verbally, Holly had gathered the IDs. And then the explain. So sometimes they beat you to it. Well, what's going to happen? You know, you don't necessarily go in and say, well, just so you know, you'll be contacted by your coordinator in 2 days to set up a meeting to discuss what happened. They may beat you to the punch and say, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? You might have someone, like in the previous incident where Maddie was really upset and I'm going to have to leave and go to the U. That's, you know, that may happen. But you're there to just simply explain what will happen in that moment, and what happens after that is not up to you. But you certainly are there for follow-up, and you can follow up with that person later. It's okay to say, I'm happy to grab a coffee with you tomorrow or the next day, or I'll come by your room in a couple of days. Feel free to reach out. That's totally okay. So that, again, is kind of the follow-up process.
Yeah, I have a question. So what if it was a situation with Holly and Abby, when Abby said she didn't have her ID, but she wouldn't tell her actual name, what would be the case?
So In some instances, if the room is like right next door, maybe it's okay if you have the ability to sort of like one of the CFs step out and just kind of verbally or visually see them go get their ID. But if it's, I live in a different building, we could call campus safety. If you may know them, ask for their name or something and look them up on THD mobile to verify that that's the person perhaps. But those are difficult situations. On our campus, students are supposed to have their IDs with them all the time, but it's not always the case.
I remember last year you told us to have them look themselves up on Gribbly because then their picture will come up too, and then clearly you'll be able to tell, and then you'll get their name and all that.
Yeah, you can utilize that too.
Do their ID numbers pop up on THD? So if they don't have their ID card, you can write them.
Yep, your name and your ID would be right there. And your place of residence, photo, birth date as well.
Is it appropriate for a CF to ask for their driver's license if they do not have a college ID on hand?
I don't think that's a bad thing to do, because then at least you probably know their name and then you can look them up on THD.
And they'll probably be able to tell you if you want to.
Yeah. So, campus safety. They are very experienced. They will help you in any scenario that you need them to help you in. Most of the time, you're going to be calling campus safety before you call the AC or Res Life Pro staff on call. A lot of times, campus safety, you'll call campus safety, and then they will call us to do some of the later stuff if we need to be called. But they are really your primary partners. Not to say the Res Life Pro staff on call cannot help. We are on call for a reason. But campus safety really are your partners and are there to help. So do not be afraid to call them or feel like you're inconveniencing them. They are there to support you and help maintain safety on our campus.
So who can help? There's lots of folks that can help, right? You have the grid in your quick guide, right? So that's a good thing to reference, just to be kind of correct in your line. You have a lot of options. You have your fellow CFs. You have your area coordinators. It's really important to help utilize those people. If you have a question, reach out. You have the on-call area coordinator phone. Call that. If there's any time that you have a question about something, we want you to be informed and to make the right decision. So please call. No matter what time of day, that's why we serve in that role, so that we can bounce ideas out, talk through some things, we can practice dialogue, we can help you resolve an incident. And of course, as Mandaria had said, campus safety, they're very experienced, very helpful, very willing people to help you succeed in your role.
Cool. So, just closing, gauging your learning. What do the ABCs of confronting stand for?
Now, speak us, reflect, collect, determine and direct, disclose,
good job. Any particular points of interest in our lab that are quick? Alicia.
For follow-up, would it be inappropriate to go to that student's room and just stop by? Or should it be just in public?
I think it depends on the situation and your relationship with that student, especially if it's someone in your section, you're probably going to know them at least fairly well. So I think that would make sense to go to their room and say hey, how you doing? If it was someone from another section, depending on what your relationship with them looks like or what the situation was, that might be weird or it might not be weird. And I think you'll know kind of how to proceed. But I don't think it's necessarily not okay.
Yeah, just another comment, especially if it is one of your residents who again you probably have a hopefully good relationship with. It's usually really important to just stress, be hey, just so you know, I was doing my job, I don't think any less of you as a person. It's really important to maintain that relationship and again, just stress that you were in that moment doing your job, because that usually is a good way to maintain a strong relationship.
In the or someone else that's on campus that is a cause for us to call campus safety, does campus safety have the power to like apprehend them, or will they just call like local law enforcement and deal with the situation that's more than like, that's getting into causing harm to others in our actual residents or other guests?
Yeah, campus safety works with St. Peter Police, and so they can determine whether or not they want to call them in for like reinforcement. A lot of times if it's a non-gusty, especially with alcohol, most of the time they're going to be calling St. Peter Police because underage alcohol consumption is a violation of the law. So if it's a non-gusty, that needs to be handled through the police and not us. So, but campus safety will generally always be calling.
So, is it all kinds of reports that could like instantly go to the campus safety? Like, let's say a case of like stalking, could you just like instantly like you feel so like insecure or you feel like you're being stalked for some reason and like just like call them?
Yeah, anytime you feel like you need some type of backup or something that you're not sure, you can call campus safety and they will help you.
So both as an individual and as a CF?
Correct. Yep, any student can call campus safety at any time.
Oh, this is just like kind of a letting you know all that. Like for those of you who like don't know, like no one addressed this last year and I was confused on this. Campus safety, when you call them, may take like a little bit to get there. They're not going to get there like immediately. Even in co-ed on some really busy nights, sometimes they would still take some time to get there. So just stay calm, and that's why like the converse part is like really important. Just kind of stay calm, because sometimes it takes like maybe like 15 minutes for them to get there.
Along with that, that's why it's important when, and we'll talk about this later, when you call campus safety to tell the dispatcher or the officer, whoever you're talking to, what the situation is, because they're going to respond, like, hopefully they should respond fast anyways, but like, if it's someone that's like passed out in a bathroom, they're going to respond much faster to that than like a potential smell of marijuana. Like, you know, so just like let them know when you call them right away.
Yeah, and when you call, it's important to say, I'm a CF in this building, I'm on this floor by this room, so that they can find you easily. Lauren, is that what you were going to say?
I was going to say, like, the dispatchers will try and give you the best information about, like, what's going on, but we don't always know how long the officer will take. But just know that they are being contacted the second you call us.
And they relay information to the officers too, so there's that back and forth over the radio, so that takes time as well. Especially if you're giving them a lot of information, they have to then tell the officer, and then they talk about, like, it's like, there's a lot of communication that happens.
What's the maximum amount of officers on any given night?
It kind of depends. So if there's like an event going on, there's typically more officers on duty. Most of the time there is at night 2 or 3 at the max on just like a normal given night.
We are out of time. Something that we didn't talk about that we probably should during staff meetings is like what to do if you see policy violations like on social media. So remind your supervisors when you do staff meeting time to kind of talk a little bit about that tonight at your staff meetings or this afternoon. And then any other questions you have, we are having staff meetings later. So, and use the question box.